Songwriter and producer Jake Gosling is probably best known for his work on Ed Sheeran's first two albums, but his list of credits spans everything from Wiley to Paloma Faith, and he's even recently worked on Shania Twain's imminent comeback album. We sat down with Jake ahead of his masterclass at ACM in Guildford to talk about arrangement, getting the best out of performers, and making the most of your equipment.
I'm Jake Gosling and I'm a producer, songwriter, and I've got a publishing company and stuff like that, all music related really. I think it, you know, with really good artists, they tend to be really clear about what they want to say. You know, I find it a lot easier to write with someone who's got an idea or a vision or something they want to say, because at the end of the day, music is really about saying something. I think obviously you need to communicate it, so it's like, how do you communicate it? You know, where do you start? And the whole thing about simplicity, it's like, you know, when you're a songwriter, you can overthink it. You can go, oh, is it good enough? Is that right? Do I really want to say it like that? But sometimes I just say, well, don't worry about that. Let's just, whatever pops into your head, because you don't know where it comes from, there's something that's sort of magical there. Do you know what I mean? And I tend to work on those bits and go, well, that's sort of the way you could say it. Let's not worry too much about it, because if you put too much pressure on a song, it can sort of become a bit fake almost. Do you know what I mean? So you have to sort of let yourself go a bit from it, stand back from it a bit, even have a little break from it, you know, and just try and be honest about what you're trying to say. And I think if you get those elements right and you do it in a sort of clear way, it doesn't have to be crazy complicated. It depends on what you want to do. If you're writing a pop song, then it's obviously got a certain way it's got to be. If you're writing a dance track, then that's another interpretation. There are genres, so you've got to work out where you fit as an artist as well. And I think that also helps to the songwriting. But it can come through a beat as well. It can come through a rhythm on a guitar. It can come through a certain lyric, or there's lots of different things you've got to pin it on, and then you sort of work it out as you go, and hopefully you get a good song at the end. It doesn't always work, but that's okay. You know, bank it. It's a good song. Is it great? You know, and sometimes it's, you know, I like to listen to a track after it's been written at night when I'm away from the studio, and I do it a lot that day, and then go in the next day. That's why 2 days is always good for me as a songwriter, because I can have time to get away from it, come back and go, is it as good as it can be? You know, and that's important. You want to make it as good as it can be, because it's a craft. And I see them as your little babies, and you're like, off you go, you know, please be good to me, you know, like, look after me, you know, whatever it is. But, you know, and also it's a personal thing. You know, there's a relationship with that song, so. I think that the production side of it was, you know, it was always something that was a sort of, I fell into, and I think that happened because I was a songwriter foremost, and I was in bands and stuff like that. So the way I learned to become a producer, I guess, was again trying stuff out and making mistakes and experimenting with different sounds. And I did different genres and styles as well. It wasn't just one thing. You know, as a producer or as anything you do, you obviously get known for the things that people know, like an Ed Sheeran or something. But then I did the Libertines stuff, which was very different sonically to where Ed was. But I'd been in bands that were indie bands, and I'd been in funk bands, and, you know, I'd done sort of folk music, and I'd done dance remixes, and so I tried lots of different styles out. It's easy for the industry or people to box you into a certain thing, but I guess a good producer is someone that understands lots of different types of music and tries out different styles, and then you sort of work out from those styles what you like. And I tend to take it from different genres and try and piece it together. And I think, you know, even with things like Ed, there was a mixture of, okay, he was a singer-songwriter, but he was into the hip-hop side of stuff. I'd just come off the back of working with Wiley and the urban hip-hop UK scene. So it was like, blending those two sort of things together were two things that hadn't been sort of done before, but it worked. But that only happened through me doing different styles, I think. I think the way to get the best out of an artist is really to make them feel comfortable, and there's been, you know, weird times where there's been all sorts of things that have gone on in the room. You know, with Paloma Faith, it was dressing the whole room up with fairy lights, you know, to make her feel like she was in a sort of fairyland. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. You know, and it could be a matter of Shania Twain. It was in, you know, Candles, for example. Whatever it might be. But there are certain things that people like, and it's important to make people feel relaxed. And where I work is very relaxed. You know, the studios, it's like, you know, very chilled. It's about having a relationship with them as well. You know, I think you also have to push them as well. I mean, it's all easy and great to say, hey, let's just chill and be friends and all the rest of it, and you ultimately do become very close to these people because you're sharing so much emotional stuff with them because it's their music or it's music you've written together or whatever. So you have to juggle it a bit by pushing them as far as you can to get the best out of them, but obviously not. I don't want to upset them. I don't want them like storming out the room and going, Jake, what have you done? And I'm crying. You know, you just don't want that. So you have to balance it all the time. And every personality is different, but you know, the people that I work with, and the majority of people I work with, are all wired in the same sort of way. So there's a similar thread. There might be different types of artists, but the way that they think and the way that they work is very similar because they work really hard and they really care about it. Shawn Mendes would be doing 2-hour vocal, you know, warm-ups before he would do every day, before he'd do a vocal take, and he'd have to do it before he did a vocal take. Not every artist works like that, but there might be something in him, you know, who does that. Whereas Ed would be playing non-stop, and just there's that constant thing. And for me, it's to be alerted to that and work quickly and make sure that I can capture it then, and make sure that when we record, we're going. It's like, because these people work very quickly, and I have to work as quick as them. And if I'm too slow and if I miss something, then that's my error, and I don't want to do that. I mean, at the studio, I have everything set up, ready to go, so mics are on everything. So I've got mics on the piano, mics on the amps, mics in the room, you know, everything's wired up. The tuner's permanently plugged into anything that I play around the whole studio if they wanted to tune an instrument, whatever it might be, through any mic or anything. Leads, everything's ready to go. So if we want to jump on the piano now, right, we can go, we can record it. I don't have to spend time setting up the mics again, taking them out of the box. You know, it's very important, I find, to be ready. And the more ready you are when recording and writing, because ideas come and you can forget them like that as well. So you have to try and capture it as quickly as you can. So that really helps the process. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of time, and it's hard work. And I get quite emotional at the end of every record. It's quite a weird one. It's like, it really is, because it's a massive journey. You're with these people, and it's, you know, you sort of get, I'm quite emotional anyway, so it's like, you know, I start welling up and like, wow, we finished this, especially after the Libertines. You know, it's like, wow, how did we get there? And it's an amazing thing when you work with people as talented as that. And it's a release, I guess. So at Sticky Studios, where I work, it's, you know, it's been there for forever basically. It's an old summer house. It's not pimped up and got all the big live room and all that sort of stuff, as much as I want to get it, but one day. But it's really homely, and it's just like, it feels very relaxed. I think it breaks down a lot of boundaries, I think, for artists as well when they come there, because it's not too over the top, I think. Like I say, it's very chilled. You know, I've got the guys that work in the room next door, half of them on YouTube the whole time, but that there's a very relaxed approach to it, and I think that really helps with the songwriting side of it. You know, it just really creates an environment where someone can, I think, chill, and I think that's important. It's very easy to think that, you know, you think, oh, I need the new mic, or I need the new desk, or I need the new toy, or whatever it might be to become professional. But going back to when I started, you know, I didn't have that technology myself. With Ed Sheeran's album, it was on a PC, Cubase 3. You know, my desk was literally, you know, popping and crackling, and I was having to gate the desk, which means you sort of have to put a silencer on the actual faders to stop the noise, because it was like, you know. But funnily enough, I was listening back to it because I don't always listen to music I've made, but I listened back to it quite recently, and I was like, oh my God, I can hear where the desk is cutting out on the guitar because the gate was so bad. But it sort of adds that slight edge to it, which maybe was part of the sound. So if I'd had, I don't know, if you had the big desk and whatever, you don't know. But that's great as well. I think having technology now and having great gear makes my life easier because the sound's there. Whereas if you don't have it, you just have to work it a bit more. Or maybe that's part of your sound. Like I like to record a guitarist with his guitar amp, not my amp, because that's his sound. Why would I use my guitar amp? That's what he plays live with, so that's his sound. That's his guitar. I don't always do it like that, but as a rule, I will try to use the stuff that, especially if it's a band, it's their sound. So you want to create that and just try and interpret it into a recording. I try and work with what I've got as much as possible. I haven't always done that, and I haven't always done that on every record, but as a rule I do. And I think that's because I prefer to choose the right sounds. Like if I've got a kick drum, I want the kick drum to be the right kick drum. And I layer a lot as well, so I'll layer up certain kicks, throughout the frequency range. There could be like a toppy one, then a middly one, then a really low 808 subby one or something. So I'll try and blend them together to create that. And when I'm happy with that, then I've got like the snare, and I might do the same with the snare or whatever, or you know what I mean? So I'm building. It's a bit like sort of painting a picture, I guess, but you have to know when to stop because it's like you can go on forever. You're like, I've got 20 snares, or I mean, with a lot of production work, you'll probably find this. When you speak to other producers, that they layer, and a lot of times they'll put in loads of stuff, and then you end up going, do we really need it? I mean, I did that. I do that loads. Do we really need that part? Is it really bringing something to the song? And sometimes it isn't. And actually, by not having it there, gives the listener that space to go, oh, same with a harmony. It's like if you put harmonies everywhere, sometimes you're like, well, I quite like when I'm in the car singing along, doing my own harmony, you know what I mean, for a laugh or whatever. And I know people like to do that. So why give them everything when you can let them become part of that, if that makes any sense. Well, I got to this sort of point, really, music was always something that I wanted to do, which I realised quite early on. I wasn't madly academic, and I liked art as well. So those sort of things pushed me forward, and being in bands was the first sort of stage, and we get so far to certain points. It was a college and then university. And my parents were like, look, that's all well and good, but you need to make some money as well, and I was like, I know, how do I do this one? This is going to be hard, because trying to make money in music's very difficult when you're starting out. So I did some work experience in the holidays at Virgin Records in London, which was actually a really good move, because it was very different to the creative side in that respect. I wasn't writing songs and I wasn't in bands. I was suddenly learning about marketing in a record label, which was completely different to what I'd known before. But it actually taught me a lot about that side of how that worked, and I think the more knowledge you've got of every part of the music industry is helpful. And it really opened my eyes to sort of that. I actually enjoyed it. I had a really good time. It's like I was making press packs and sending them out, and I was like, cool, I do art, so maybe I'll just rather than do a normal press pack, I'll start painting them. It took me forever, but because it was marketing, and at that point, people were like, this is different, we like it, and I enjoyed it. And off the back of that, I was still up at uni, and we were doing gigs for a bit of money, and then I got offered a job as a record plugger. For an interview down in London through the work experience I did, and that again was a complete change of thing. And it was like, at that point, everyone had left my band. I was like, it's just me, what do I do? I was like, it's really hard, maybe I should give this a go. I'm going to get paid, and it's music. Might not be what I want to do, but it might help me somehow. So I did that, and then got fired quite quickly afterwards because I was terrible at it. But I learned a lot from it. I learned, again, phoning up radio stations, local radio stations, going, "Hi, will you play this music?" And they were, at that point, because it was regional, it was like, "Oh, we're going to play it anyway." And I'm like, "Well, do you like it?" And they're like, "Well, not really, but we're going to play it because we're part of this machine and that machine." And that really like upset me. I was like, "This is not cool. Like, so you're just playing music because someone's sort of telling you to do it." Couldn't get my head around it. And I think that's probably why I got fired, because I wasn't very good at my job. I was too honest with the people on the phone and saying, "Well, I don't like it either. What is this?" But I did sort of enjoy that part of it. And then I realised, well, when I left, or when I got fired, I was like, I now know what I need to do. I need to not work as a record plugger, and I need to not be on that side of the industry. I need to find a way of doing what I want to do. A friend of mine happened to be in a band at the BBC, and through them I met my now publisher. She was head of music there, and I went in, met with her, and she said, "Do you want to do pitching or have a go at trying some stuff for TV music?" So I was like, "Anything, yeah, please." So I started doing a bit of that, started making a little bit of money from that one, and then did a bit of advertising stuff. And then again I realised that just felt a bit selfless. I wasn't writing songs. And it was a slow progression. There's a lot of hard work and a lot of trying out stuff I didn't want to do to know what I wanted to do. And then started writing songs and working with artists and stuff and sessioning a little bit, and then stuff started to happen. I think with songwriting tips, I think try to get it into a shape, if that makes sense. Like, think about where it's going to start and think about where it's going to end. Music's changing all the time, and I think with things like Spotify and stuff, they used to be, with radio, would determine, for example, a length of a song. So it'd be like, oh, it has to be 3.5 minutes long. So maybe a little tip would be to maybe start putting it into a framework. Think about it like placement of where you're going. So you've got a verse, and you've got maybe a build into that chorus, and then you've got the chorus, then we'll probably go back to a verse. So it's actually, if you think about it, not that difficult, because if you structure it like that, make it very simple for yourself, like, I guess, a bit childish, then you can sort of work out a shape of where that song's going to go. So each chorus will have something that you can remember, something that the fans or people can remember and sing back, or they can learn from, or whatever it might be. But it's still something that can be, I guess, personal to you. Do you know what I mean? So that would be a good tip, I think. And I think also, just keep doing it as well. You've got to make mistakes with it, and you have to try out things that you probably don't want to do again as well. You're like, "Nah, I'm not doing that again." But it's doing more and more of it. I can't stress enough. I'm still learning when I write songs as well now. You don't really stop that process. It keeps changing. And going back to the Spotify thing, I think now you can have you can write a 10-minute song now if you want to. Why not? Who's saying, that it's changing the way people listen to music. So you don't have those criteria as such. It doesn't have to be a 3.5-minute song now. If it goes over and it goes 4, maybe 5, but it works. It's probably harder to do because you've got to keep people's attention for longer. But yeah, I think the door's a bit more open for people to be a bit more creative, which is good. I think actually maybe my dad said to me, the first thing you ever, this is about songwriting, but he said to me, the first thing you ever normally write or comes out is normally the best thing. So I tend to use that one quite a lot.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and share it, and subscribe to the Sound on Sound YouTube channel. Also, check out some of our other videos right here. Thanks for watching.